Well, hello everybody. It's nice to see all your beautiful faces again, or I guess you can see my beautiful face since all I really see from you guys is chat and the text. But welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses Reborn episode 1,000,002, I think. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's like actual or fifth actual episode. That wasn't a Barracuda After Dark. Obviously, this is not a Barracuda After Dark. You are not going to get, a Barracuda centered show, which actually I'm not gonna lie, like having the time to put the Barracuda loss aside, I'm happy to be able to talk about other things again. Wow. James Abel just gave us a fun factoid of the night. Matt Murray is only the third rookie goaltender in history to score a shutout in the finals. Wow, that's pretty good. So anyway, we're here. We got a ton of things to talk about. Obviously, again, since we haven't talked NHL forever, there's a lot of stuff we missed. We're gonna backtrack maybe a little teeny bit, and then talk about obviously stuff going on right now and talk about what's going on coming up. With me tonight, of course, I'd be remiss if I did not introduce my co-host tonight, and my co-host tonight is the one and only Hockey Jerk. How you doing, Jerk?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I just finished a module of hell, and I have 27 days left of school.
Awesome. I just finished a game 5 of hell, and we have 2 more days before this damn series is over.
It's so funny, but I don't know. There's so much to talk about, and some rough notes, nothing super solid, and we're just going to go anything. The first thing I have in my list of horror is the Sharks are going to sign everyone this summer.
Yeah, true.
Including Joe Thornton, but not Patrick Marleau.
No, Patrick Marleau was spotted at Disneyland yesterday, so I think it's almost safe to say that he'll be suiting up for the Anaheim Ducks come September.
Yep, Anaheim Ducks, TTG5. It's so funny because like it's funny that he was at Disneyland though, because like remember when the rumors came out that he said he would go to like 3 different teams, and I think it was like LA, Anaheim, and New York, and he was in Anaheim, so it's clearly a done deal.
Clearly,
congratulations Anaheim Ducks on your new forward. Which of course we just pulling that out of our butts, but there have been a couple of players that have been connected to the Sharks through all this time. One of them, I think, so we'll go from silly to not so silly to at least plausible. Obviously, the missing piece in San Jose is to bring in Alex Ovechkin, right? I mean, the Sharks have all the assets to give up for Ovechkin. And basically he's on Sharks East anyway, so I mean he's kind of the perfect fit. No,
you know what? You're absolutely right. It'd be a very smooth transition. He's already got, he's already has experience with being the only guy who contributes and still gets 100% of the blame. So he's good. He's good there. Yep. He wears the number 8 and also has a C on the front of his jersey. So,
true.
Not going to give the fans any kind of weird shock there. It's all, business as usual. And, it's going to happen. The Sharks, as we all know, or the Sharks are just loaded with draft picks, and prospects. And, they're going to, it's going to be awesome.
But seriously though, like, do you honestly think like Alex Ovechkin could go anywhere? Like, I don't see it. Like, for one, I think the general manager that walks into Ted Leon's office and says, so I've got this trade for Ovechkin is going to be quickly a former general manager.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I mean, especially with, it's been well documented that, Alex Ovechkin and Ted Leonsis are, pals.
Right.
But I mean, the type of player that Alex Ovechkin is, he's probably the best pure goal scorer in the world. And that's not a player that you want to give up just because the supporting cast around him didn't help him out. Like
Yeah.
He scored 33 goals this year, and that's considered a down year. Like, how dare you, right?
How dare you? Yeah, I don't understand, like, because it's like, I don't think, for one, I don't think he's in decline. I mean, I've always been on the record that I don't like these super long-term deals for anybody, because I think that, by the end of them, I know there's like the, we're gonna retire and everything's gonna be cool. But I've never been a fan, and I don't see, like, I think there would be teams that would definitely be takers for Alex Ovechkin, but I mean, some of the teams that have been listed, like, I've seen the Sharks list, and again, these aren't coming from incredibly credible sources, but it's, we're in the summer now, so we can talk about rumors no matter how stupid they come from or how stupid they are. Like, I seen, and another thing too is, like, with the way that school's been going on, I've been out of the loop, so I skim my Twitter feed every once in a while and go, hee, that's stupid, and not really look anything into it. But I saw him linked to Calgary, and that was like, I'm like, why is he gonna go to Calgary?
That's, oh my god, like, you're right, that makes no sense. Like, Calgary doesn't need a player like Alex Ovechkin. It's
no.
The way I kind of view this whole Ovechkin situation going down, should it go down, is I have a feeling it's going to be similar to the Tyler Seguin trade, where you kind of ship him off to a team that doesn't really have a whole lot, and
right.
you kind of make him the new face of that team. So if you're looking, if you want to play armchair GM and make a hot take on where you think Ovechkin goes, I think the place you should be looking are places that don't really have a whole lot going for them and could use a star player to boost fan interest. Say,
so
Vegas or Carolina. I could see.
Do not besmirch the good name of Noah Hannafin.
No, my apologies. You know what? Drew's not here anymore, so I thought I could say it, but
that's fair. That's fair. Yes, Dallas did have Jamie Benn. That's true.
Yeah, I was gonna say Cheryl brings up a good point. Dallas had Jamie Benn, but I think Tyler Seguin is the perfect complement to Jamie Benn, and I think
right.
Ovechkin's a winger, so you want to look somewhere where maybe they have a good center, either up and coming or already, but you kind of want to build beyond that.
Yeah. Another player I think that would be an interesting, interesting player that comes up. Not that there's really any solid rumors linked to him, but I've seen, a little bit here and there about Jaromir Jagr. Now, to me, like, I love Jagr, don't get me wrong, but how do I say this without losing all our people in the chat? Jagr's not what he once was, and I think we've started to see, it's not like he's getting younger, and there has been a little, decline there. I think that's fair to say, and I look at Jagr's in amazing shape for his age, but at what point is he gonna just end up being like Chris Chelios at the end?
Yeah, agreed, and I almost kind of view the Jagr situation as very similar to Marleau, where it's like, he's not effective as he once was, but he still is effective. So it's a matter of, can you get him on your team for the right dollar amount? And I think the street pedigree that comes with Jaromir Jagr, I think there's what am I trying to say? Like almost an inclination to overpay for the name alone, and
for sure.
And I don't think that's a Sharks exclusive thing. I think any team would say, "Oh, Jaromir Jagr, he's never gonna retire. Let's sign him.
Give him $4 million."
And like I said, for the right price, sure, I'll take a chance on Jaromir Jagr, but not for what he's going to command.
I don't see him, like, I think San Jose is a really weird destination for him, because with Jagr, right, like, this is a guy who, I think he plays in Florida for a reason.
Yeah.
There's no taxes in Florida. There's significantly higher taxes in California. East teams, like, yes, he's in Florida, so he does have to travel, but nowhere near the miles that a San Jose travels. Like, I don't. I mean, yeah, he might be helpful on the power play, as Billy says in the chat, but I just like, and he's and the age thing again. Like, I can't beat this dead horse enough. Like, the Sharks do not need to get any older.
Agreed. And something else to consider with Jágr, whether it's a coincidence or whether it's a preference or kind of thing, he's only played for one West Coast team in his entire NHL career,
right.
And he was there for half of a half season, so there's not a whole lot of experience playing on the West Coast, and it's obviously a very different type of game. And like you said, on the East Coast, you can probably hit a majority of the teams within an 8-hour drive, while on the West Coast, your choices are very limited. So you put a lot more miles on the body that way, and it would wear him down so much quicker.
I think so. I don't think he has any interest, especially like, San Jose and Vancouver generally travel the most out of any team in the entire league. I just don't see him signing up for that with the higher taxes and everything else. ZG Salt asking if Jágr might sign with the Atlanta Thrashers. Now that, I think, is a perfect home for him.
Absolutely. It's, it's right there, kind of in the thick of, of the Southeast, where
the Southeast Division.
Yeah, he kind of likes to hang out there. I think it would be perfect,
Yeah, exactly. So let's go to something a little more, something that I think at least is in the realm of possibility, and that would be the returning Ilya Kovalchuk. As far as all signs point to him coming back to the NHL, and I don't know if he's trying to just ratchet up his money in Russia, which I've seen floated around, and I think that's a legit possibility. But I don't know. Like, Kovalchuk, I think, for one, you're gonna have to give the Devils something. You can't just sign him because he's going to be Devils property if he returns. So I don't know. I've heard, I saw someone saying Braun to New Jersey for Kovalchuk, and then we sign Kovalchuk or whatever. I don't see it. I think that would be a disaster.
Well, and there's a lot of different ways that you kind of have to consider the situation, and then again, it goes back to Jaromir Jágr. If you can get him for the right price, then sure. I think it's a chance that you do have to take, considering where the Sharks team is. They're definitely in win now, and I imagine would like to win the Stanley Cup within the next 2 years.
They have to.
And yeah, they have to. And, Ilya Kovalchuk definitely helps out. He left winger who can also play on the right, had trouble with. Good on the power play, again, something they've had trouble with. Good on the penalty kills, and you can never have too many good penalty killers. But again, you have to give up assets to get him. And I was, again, I was yelling into the empty void that is Twitter, but I was saying, you're probably looking at the Sharks' first-round pick this year, which I believe is 17th overall.
19th, I think.
Or it's somewhere there. And you're probably looking at Mirko Mueller, and honestly, that's probably just the starting point, because you have to consider the Devils are rebuilding. They have Taylor Hall, who is kind of the face of the rebuild, again. And they have the number 1 pick this year, so it's very much a win-later mindset in New Jersey. And so they're going to try and cash in on Kovalchuk as much as possible.
Oh, for sure. And as well they should.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I myself personally, I truly think he could score 30 goals in the NHL next year. I think he can. You look at his KHL stats. Obviously, the KHL is more offensively minded. Not a lot of defensive play,
right.
It's not as prevalent there. But again, he still puts up the points. He has won 2 Gagarin Cups and went to a 3rd Gagarin Cup final while he was there. He's got some legitimate, street cred.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I know there's a lot of like anti-Kovalchuk in the chat, and look, I'm not advocating for this trade by any stretch. I think that, I understand that the Sharks need to basically win in the next 2 years. I think that's really, when you talk windows and whatnot, like 2 years, this team is going to have to be pretty much stripped down, I think. when you look at some of the guys that are going to be gone and trying to find bodies to replace them. But, the one thing the Sharks are short on is assets. And I really don't want to see more mortgaging the future so that you have like just 2 crappy years with no draft picks and the team's abhorrent, and you don't have the picks to reap the rewards of that. That would scare me pretty badly. I just don't see it. Like, I feel like San Jose never lands that big fish,
Right.
And Kovalchuk would be easily the biggest fish on the market come free agency, if or not come free agency, but come, around that same time, right? Because he'd still be, I think that's the soonest he could start talking to the Devils, or the Devils could start talking about his rights or whatnot. So I just think that, he'd be the biggest fish in the pond. And I think someone's going to massively overpay for, and Kovalchuk is like, he's not young as he used to be. I mean, he's 35 now. It's not like super old, but, he's getting to that point where, you start seeing that wall.
Yeah, agreed. And after a certain age, you don't know what a player is going to do. You look at Jerome McGinley. Last year as a 38-year-old, he put up 20 goals with the Avalanche and looked like he had just as much spring in his step as, a Jaromir Jagr or a Joe Thornton does. And then you come to this year and he scores, I think, 10 goals only between the Avalanche and the Kings, a very obvious drop off. And, when you're a player like Joe Thornton or Jerome McGinley or Jaromir Jagr, if you can have good seasons after a certain age, obviously it's something to be excited about, but at the same time you could easily, like you said, hit that wall without any warning.
Right. And I think that's what scares me, because I think we don't need no more players at that age. Like I think we saw a down season from Joel Ward this year. Don't get me wrong, some of our young guys needed to step up too. Obviously, Donskoy playing with a bajillion separated shoulders through the year didn't help anything. I'm hoping a healthy season from him. We can kind of see what we saw him in the first season. Timo's coming along. Who else? I mean, there's guys in the system that are coming along, but those guys do have to take that next step at some point, because Joe Thornton's not going to be here forever. I mean, Joe Thornton probably back. He was at a Barracuda game, so he should be back. But I mean, but it's not like there's other fan bases are kind of, it's funny because you have like a lot of people in our fan base that are like, oh no, we don't want Joe Thornton back. And it's funny because you have other fan bases that would just love to have Joe Thornton, but not to be. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, you're absolutely right. He, like, I hate what the salary cap does to people.
Yeah.
Because yes, his contract for how old he is and his, anticipated decline, it's not ideal, but like you don't just go to a guy who scored 50 points in a down year and say, okay, bye. You don't do that. You don't go to, a 37-year-old winger who just scored 27 goals and say bye. You don't do that. Like if they had just been had awful years, absolutely. But and again, it goes back to what I said before, for the right dollar, I think you keep them both. Mm-hmm. But that's, it's for the right dollar.
Right. I think that's key. And term, I think, matters too.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't want to see another 3-year deal for either of them.
No, not at all. And I think, the smart thing to do is to do 1-year deals, because it allows, first of all, let's say Thornton signs a 3-year deal, and then after that first year, he doesn't have any desire to play anymore. I mean, it sounds ridiculous as I say it, but let's just say, he doesn't have any desire. Then, let's say he retires, the Sharks are going to get stuck with penalties because it's an over 35 contract.
Yep.
And it's going to create a mess. It gives the 1-year deal, it gives, the freedom for both the team and the player. And then, let's say the Sharks are like, okay, Thornton, you had a down year, so we're not going to pay you as much for a 1-year deal. And he says, okay. And then he plays like he did the year they went to the Cup final, then he could command more money.
Yeah. You know what? I think that I don't think either of them would take a 1-year deal. I think we need to take it like a 2-year for them. I think 2 years could be like the absolute minimum you can get them for, and I'm fine with that. If the price is right. Look, you can't, we've talked about this on previous shows. You can't just replace Joe Thornton at this point. Like, there's no replacement, as good as Logan Couture is, he's not Joe Thornton. And no one will ever be Joe Thornton. He's a generational playmaking talent, and you're just not going to replace that with anything in the system. Like, there's no replacement for Joe Thornton. I think Marleau you can replace more. The issue I have with Joe Thornton coming back is that I don't trust the coaching staff, because he's the big dog in this yard. I don't trust the coaching staff to diminish his role any. Whereas I think if he signed with another team, then he's not going to be expected to be the top guy there. He's going to have to fall into line. Like, let's say a team who's media or blogosphere, whatever, drools over the idea of having Joe Thornton as the Leafs. Yeah. If Joe Thornton goes to Toronto, he's the number 3 center on that team, maybe number 2. Yeah, but at worst, the number 3. That's never going to happen in San Jose with DeBoer here.
No, not at all.
Or anybody, I don't think. And I think that's the part that bothers me is like, if you can't get him to take a diminished role, and you can't get someone to step up. I mean, I feel like you're just prolonging the inevitable. And I feel like if Joe Thornton had to do less, he might be better for, being used less.
Yeah, exactly. And then, when you use him less, at the same time, it allows you to see what you have in other players. And
exactly.
It's hard. It's a hard situation, because on one hand, you think about how loyal Joe Thornton is to San Jose, and he might be willing to take a backseat to things. But then at the same time, like you said, he doesn't have the C anymore, but it's still his yard. He's the big dog. He runs the power play. He sees the most minutes. It's his yard. And yeah, it goes back to what I said before. Unless you're really 100% pulling off the Band-Aid, you don't just say, okay, we're done with you, and then try and be a contender still. It's either keep him or you just go for the rebuild altogether.
Right, which you don't have the draft picks to go for the rebuild for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Your 2018, 2019 Sharks team is going to look rough, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. And I think, and the other thing to go with what I just said, to just finish that thought, and then we'll move on, is that with Joe Thornton in San Jose, is that did change it. Like, coaches, obviously want to keep their job, and I just don't trust that if things go wrong, that Joe Thornton doesn't get immediately bumped back up to the top line and gets all his minutes back and everything else, right? Because if you're a coach, you're hired to be fired.
Yeah, exactly. And let's say Peter DeBoer does get fired. There's no way to know what the new coach is going to think. He may think Joe Thornton is a total bum and not give him any minutes. But
I think it matters. I don't think it matters what the coach thinks. I think it matters what Doug Wilson thinks.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of from my viewpoint. It seems like there's a lot of like, yeah, this is your team, but I'm right behind you, looking over your shoulder.
Right. And look, I'm not saying I'm not saying Peter DeBoer is at risk of being fired. I think if the Sharks really massively stumble out of the gate, like if they just go through November and they just can't pick up a win, I think it's possible. But I don't see Peter DeBoer going anywhere anytime soon. Like, they would have to really come out of the gate really brutal. Steve Spott is not getting fired. That's already been confirmed by Doug Wilson. Although I know that Bob Bugner, who does most of the defensive stuff, I believe, is I think that if, as long as he doesn't get tired by another team, he'll be back. But he's been rough. He's been around on interviews. What am I talking about? I don't even know.
Yeah, the Bob Bugner interviewed with Colorado last year, and then interviewed with Florida this year, and then
and Buffalo.
I was going to say, yeah, I had heard Buffalo had asked for permission, but I didn't hear if the Sharks had agreed or not.
I believe Drager said that they did interview him.
Okay.
All right, so let's switch gears here. Let's talk about the Stanley Cup Final. It looks like I didn't miss anything tonight.
Oh man, what a
series!
Like, Pittsburgh absolutely came out to play tonight.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And I know I'm going to be in the minority on this, and feel free to @ me on Twitter @ @hockey_jerk. But if the Penguins win the Stanley Cup again, I'm fine with it. It's just you're rewarding a good team. Like, there's no denying that the Penguins are a good team, and I think if they can't pull it off, then it will be much worse. And yet on the flip side of things, I firmly believe Nashville has the power to win the next 2 games. They've been shown to be really good at bouncing back all playoffs, and obviously the home ice advantages has been a big thing in the series. But this isn't like when the Sharks lost Game 4 last year and it was all but done. Like, Nashville still got some life here, even though they did get absolutely throttled tonight.
Yeah. It's been interesting because, like, while it's not like the NBA final where it's like heading towards like blow it sweep, like, it's funny because, like, these games, it feels like they've never really been, like, most of these games haven't been close. It's like one team's either ran away with it or the other team's ran away with it, score-wise anyway.
Yeah, and I feel like for the majority of the series, Nashville has been the better team. I feel like they even the first 2 games in Pittsburgh, which they lost both of, I thought they were, if anything, I thought they played as well as the Penguins, and so that's kind of something to hang your hat on. But you're right. I feel like the whole first 3 rounds of the playoffs, it's been, parity this, parity that, overtime this, right, overtime that, and now it's like, who's the home team? Nashville. Okay, they're going to win.
yeah, exactly. Pekka Rinne has been interesting this thing. I think he's the guy that stands out to me because I really feel like if not for Pekka Rinne, like, maybe Nashville took one of those first 2 games in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Pekka Rinne was bad in the first 2 games. There's no sugarcoating it, but at the same time, you look at games 3 and 4, I think Pekka Rinne absolutely did everything he could to help them win, especially when you consider, Forsberg and Arvidsson and Neal,
right,
who are their top players, have combined for, I think, only 2 goals in the Cup final, while, Freddie Hockey, who doesn't even have a locker stall, has 3 goals in the Cup final.
Right. Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I think what I've enjoyed more though is like the conversation around the finals. Obviously you can't compliment one fan base without the other fan base saying, "But we're good too. We're a really good fan base. You don't know what you're talking about, man." This whining coming out of, like, especially, and it's not even like just like hockey Twitter. It's like Pittsburgh, like, media personalities are being like, "Oh, well, if you're just talking about the atmosphere and stuff, then you don't know anything about hockey." Like, everyone's so butthurt that Nashville's so fun. And look it. I'm not gonna lie. Last year on this channel, there was some whining about Nashville's fan base from people who also talk on this channel. We'll keep that between us, though. This I don't know. It drives me crazy because I feel like, and it's a fan thing and I get it. And I probably just, like, I shouldn't get so upset with it, but I can't stand this. Like, if a fan base gets complimented on something, the other fan base immediately is like, "Oh, they don't like us. What the hell?" Like, especially coming from Pittsburgh fans.
Especially like Vince G brings up, and I was about to bring up, the person who kind of started this whole thing was Pittsburgh's meteorologist. It's like,
right.
It's like, stick to predicting the weather wrong, dude. Come on.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you're wrong about the weather. You're wrong about this. If there is an arena like that I could watch a hockey game in as not a cheering fan, like if the Sharks aren't playing, Nashville would be just super high on my list. Like, it would be easily in my top 5 arenas I'd want to go to. like just to watch a hockey game. Obviously, if the Sharks are playing, then I want to be there no matter what. But you know, I would go and watch Nashville, Carolina. Like it would probably be like fourth on my list of buildings that I would love to watch a hockey game in.
Yeah, absolutely. M. Hackle brings up the Bell Center again. Yes. Another nice barn you want to see.
Number one.
Yeah, I think Winnipeg's arena very underrated in terms of fan atmosphere. Yeah, it's like what I just don't understand this whole idea that we have to, hate the other fan base because they are having fun. Like
right. Like
in game 1, Sharks Oilers, when Clefbaum scored the first goal, Edmonton's fans were like just so jacked. And I watched that video and I was like, that is the coolest thing ever, because you can tell how pumped they are. Like they're happy, so I'm mad because they're on the other side.
Happy.
Like, just,
yeah, like
you know what? Like it's an awesome environment. Like
get over
even if
it.
even if the Sharks are playing Nashville and we have to hear "I like it, I love it, I want some more of it" 5 times, I'm gonna catch on eventually. It's a catchy song. Like sue me,
Yeah. Oh, and look at, James, you're absolutely right. Like when other teams call Penguins bad, look at, I get it. Like I generally, I try not to get into these fights of fandom because they're dumb. Like they're really, really dumb. But like Nashville's been like, everyone's like, oh, Nashville, like, because, this is the problem with coverage in the States, period, is, how many games were Nashville on NBC before the playoffs? 1, I think, if any.
Yeah. I think it was just one.
I think they had 1 game, and but Nashville's like attendance has always been good, right? And yes, people that are not Chicago fans are sick of Chelsea Dagger. This playoffs was great because you didn't have to hear it once.
You know what? I think that even Chicago fans are sick of that song.
Yeah, probably. But I think with Nashville, like, it's not like suddenly all the fans came out because they're in the Cup final. Like this is an arena that's, basically been sold to capacity for the last 5-6 years, I think.
Yeah. And the chants are nothing new either.
Right. Oh, exactly. I mean, I guess people are making a big deal out of it because, stupid people don't put, fun players on TV. But it really, really makes me annoyed a little bit, especially like, because people are like, oh man, like, oh, this team's a bigger hockey. And, because again, it goes back to like this whole just stupid fandom stuff where it's like, oh, you're not, you're not as good at fans as we are, which is like what you're seeing, like a lot of coming out, like, especially like out of Pittsburgh, which I think is ironic because when you look, Pittsburgh almost went bankrupt once, and then they drafted a guy named Mario Lemieux, and he saved the franchise. And then he saved it again by buying the franchise. And they were also on the verge of being sold before they drafted some Sidney Crosby guy. So, maybe the glass house thing, right? No, and I realized Nashville had been up for sale in the past too, but I think that's like just, I think what annoys me the most is just like the lack of self-awareness sometimes from people. And I get that it's just shit talking. You're not supposed to be super, factual about it.
Factually correct.
Factually correct on everything. But I just, I don't know. Yeah. It bothers me for some reason because I just like, you people are grown adults. Just shut up. Get out of my timeline.
And you know what? You bring up a good point too, because another thing that people like to constantly harp on is, why do the Arizona Coyotes have a team? They have no fans. But it's like, if you watch their games, I'm not going to lie, they don't sell out all of their games. No, but the fans that are there are loving the shit out of it. And if you ever hear the Coyotes score a goal, they have a like Coyote howl after their goal song. Again, another thing that, and it's a kind of a uniqueness that should be like, I don't want to say celebrated, but should be viewed as like, hey, that's a cool little thing they do, instead of like, oh, they do that stupid howl because, they like to be stupid. And it's like, no. Celebrate your differences.
Here's the last thing. Here's the last thing before I get off this
I know. I feel very salty.
I know, so do I, because I hate people, I think is what it is. The other thing too that really drives me crazy was like something I read like, oh, they're just going there to see who's going to sing the anthem. Okay, listen. That would be like saying that people went to San Jose to see who was going to open the fucking door for 2 minutes.
So I'm gonna let you in on a little secret.
Okay.
If you want to know who's singing the national anthem, just turn on your TV, or if you can't watch the game, you're out with friends at work or whatever, just go on the NBC Sports Facebook like 30 minutes after the game starts, and there will be a full video of the national anthem. That's why we have social media, people.
I know, like no one's going there. Like it's an added bonus, but no one's going there to watch, potentially their favorite country artist, because they never announce it beforehand, sing the national anthem for a couple of minutes, and then, oh, I guess I'll stick around for this hockey game. Like, shut up, jeez.
You know who probably does go to those games to see who the national anthem singer is the guy who sings it during the regular season that hasn't gotten to sing it all playoffs.
Oh yeah, he's upset.
He is upset. He probably goes to Bridgestone every day. He's like, this is gonna be. He's like saying to his wife, man, they're not letting me sing, and she's like, just go to the arena. Your name might be on the board. And then he goes, and it's not there. And then he's like, oh, I guess I'll stay. They gave me an LED bracelet.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was saying that he's looking forward to going to a Vegas game to see Cirque. I mean, yeah, I think that's gonna be awesome. Intermission shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Or
game.
Yeah, and I mean, you just think about the intermission games that they could have. Okay, coming up for the second intermission, it's the World Series of Poker or something. Play a game of Texas Hold'em against, insert poker star here. Yeah.
But one thing I will say, since I'm harping on fan bases and whatnot, after this little Nashville series, Sharks fans, we got to step up our game.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being at and watching so many games where, like the fans were passionate. It could be like a 1-0 goal in a preseason game that literally doesn't matter. And the fans they're pumped. They score, they jump up, they're cheering, they're clapping, they're high-fiving everybody around them. I've experienced this, like this is something that I've lived. And, say what you want about various circumstances, but I feel like since the reverse sweep, fans are there, but they're just not as excited because they're like, and again, I'm not saying this is everybody, but I feel like a majority are just like, well, this team, I keep giving them money and they don't do anything for me, so I'm just going to sit here.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, and it didn't help that last year when we were in the Cup Finals, when the Sharks were in the Cup Finals, I shouldn't say that, there was some games going on at Oracle as well. That probably didn't help things any.
Man, you know what would have been good though, because as we all know, the Warriors, gave up the 3-1 lead. It was 3-1, and please like my sport. But could you imagine if the Sharks won the Stanley Cup like that? Like winning the Stanley Cup by itself is awesome, but they could totally be like, we come like our sport.
Hashtag. Please like our sport.
Yes.
Couple questions in the chat before we venture out into other topics here. How big of a kick in the gut will it be? Well, Pittsburgh can't raise the cup at home, so they win it in Nashville. I'm not surprised. Although this has been a home series, so I'm kind of hoping for Nashville to just come back and smoke them next game, so that we can put the because it seems like it's so amazing because like after 2 games. Everyone's like, oh, Nashville's done, forget this. And then, 2 more games, oh, Pittsburgh's done, forget this. And now it's like Nashville's dead again. Like we haven't seen them come back and play. I mean, it sucks having the cup raised in your barn, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Pittsburgh, in all 4 of Pittsburgh's Stanley Cups, they've only won on the road. So if we want to dabble in a little bit of hashtag jerk stats, then I think the Penguins have the Stanley Cup sewed up. they shouldn't even play Game 6. They should just fly there and accept it. But, like I said earlier, there's no reason why the Predators can't smoke them in Game 6, like you said, and then come out and scare people in Game 7. I mean, just remember, it's only been a couple weeks since the freaking, walking ICU that the Ottawa Senators took them to double overtime. So,
that's right.
I mean, it's the beauty of the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NHL in general is you really, truly, 100% don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I agree. And if Pittsburgh pulls it out, then they're the first back-to-back champions in the salary cap era, and I think that's a feat. We've seen how hard it is to hold together Cup teams.
Yeah, exactly. And I would, like I said, if the Penguins won the Cup again, like I'm happy for them because at least they have a good team.
Happy.
Well, I'm a big fan of the Penguins' business model and how they manage assets. Big fan, but like they actually have a good team. So if they win the Stanley Cup again, it's like, well, at least what I thought was going to happen happened.
Right.
But like if the Cup final ended up being like Ottawa and I don't know, like San Jose, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like,
Can they go 3 to be a dynasty, a legit dynasty? None of this Blackhawks Kings trading cups nonsense.
I think so. I mean, you look at what they did this year. The net is already Matt Murray's. There's no doubt about that. He got a majority of the starts in the regular season. He got the net. Marc-Andre Fleury was my pick for the Conn Smythe, and he still lost the net to Matt Murray. The net is Matt Murray's no matter what. So what you do as the Penguins GM is you have 4 defensemen who are UFAs. You move on from the 2 that are old. Mm-hmm. You sign the 2 that are restricted free agents, being Dumoulin and Schultz. You're going to be able to trade Marc-Andre Fleury for a sweet, sweet asset. I think a defenseman who is young but ready for the NHL. And you look at the forward core, like Jake Gensel was supposed to be in the AHL all year, and now he leads the league in goals in the playoffs. Like
crazy.
And you still have Crosby and Malkin and Kessel and Sheary and Hornqvist and God willing they trade Carl Hagelin, but
it's not fair.
So it's gonna be interesting. I think they can do it, and I think a Penguins dynasty I'm able to be okay with more than a Blackhawks or a Kings dynasty, just because I mean the Kings actually had a decent team for their first Cup run, but like the Blackhawks, the Blackhawks just put all of their eggs into 2 baskets and then dragged whatever supporting cast they could along the way.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, you know what, they the thing with them, like, I think they could do it. Like, I think if any team could do it, I think, like, again, Pittsburgh's going to be mostly intact. But I think that, a healthy Lightning team could definitely push them.
Absolutely. Especially when you consider that the Lightning were kind of able to shed a little bit of the dead weight they had this year. They moved on from Brian Boyle and bought out Matt Carl. It's a slow process, but I think, if they do the right things at the draft and free thick of things.
Yeah. If Vasilevsky's can be the guy now that Bishop's no longer there.
Yeah, and Ben
I think he can be.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
I don't think Rob asking, who's more likely to hold a fire sale next season, LA or Chicago. Neither team really can. Like, fire sales are hard to do because of salary cap. I don't think you can have a real fire sale anymore because some contracts are just too toxic to move.
This is what we're going to see. Okay. So have you ever seen it's the meme from SpongeBob. It's Patrick and it says, I have $3.
Right.
That's the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Like, what are they going to do? Like, can we have your 30 goal scorer who's under 27 years old? Okay, give us your first. Yeah,
yeah,
that. We don't have it.
right. No, exactly. I and that's the kind of where I'm at. Like, I just don't see it. I think legitimate fire sales are really, really, really hard to have at this point.
You have to have good pieces to have a fire sale.
You do. I think that to have a fire sale now, you have to have the kind of pieces that you don't want to part with. You don't, unless you're Colorado.
Like, I think right. I think after their Chicago's third cup, that was a fire sale because they had to move on from Patrick Sharp, who still an elite goal scorer at his age. They had to move on from Brandon Saad, who was 2 Stanley Cups as a 24 at the time year old,
and they gave him that $6 million deal that they had no chance of paying.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Brandon Saad was a good piece, and they had to get rid of it. They had to move on from Nick Leddy, young defenseman who is doing good things with the Islanders. That was a fire sale.
Yeah,
but like, yeah, we have Vinny Hinostroza. Can we have a first? Yeah, click.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Christine just gave us a Jeff Merrick quote where it's like it's been a great dinner party, but the bill just arrived, and I think that's 100% accurate.
Yeah. The Blackhawks left their wallet in their pants.
Yeah, you know what? But Vince G makes up a good point here, and this is something Chicago's done really well. They've done 2 things really well. They've drafted well, and they've gotten European signings that have been just hit out of the park over and over again. Like they've got, next year, Alex DeBrincat's probably going to be on that team.
Alex DeBrincat fell into their lap.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he did fall, but I think this is a guy who I think he's not going to obviously put up points like he did in junior, and no one should expect that. But he's got enough points scoring that there should be a NHL scoring pedigree there, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think DeBrincat kind of, gives them some hope for the future, and I think the asset they got for Nick Leddy, the Finnish defenseman, I think that's another good asset to have. But I mean, how many seasons will go by before we hear Blackhawks win a Stanley Cup, and the next day DeBrincat's on his way to
Carolina.
Yeah. And that's another thing to give up Tara Vinen. It's like, being and that's why Chicago is a little different than Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh, why I said I like their business model, they actually have a good habit of, not overpaying for guys versus Chicago. And I mean, I don't want to go too into it, but my biggest concern and really my biggest gripe with Chicago is that you have 3 Stanley Cups and you're under the age of 30, you're 2-star players. Like, as Taves and Kane, why do you not recognize that you have 3 Stanley Cups and take less than $10.5 million each to try and win more Stanley Cups? Honestly, I think it's selfish.
Yeah, no, I mean that's really what that was their undoing, right? Like the Kane and the Kane and Taves deal, especially like Kane. Like I think Kane's kind of, at first I thought it was like a massive overpayment. I think Kane's kind of starting to move into that price range now where you can say, yeah, okay, because Kane is one of the best wingers in the league. There's very few wingers in the league that can make your center better. And Kane is absolutely one of them. Personal issues aside, but I think so he's kind of there. But like Taves to me, and I love Jonathan Taves. I gushed over Jonathan Taves on this, show 100 million times. But he's not worth the money. He's not worth that paycheck.
No, and maybe. Like, he would probably be worth that paycheck if he was still scoring at the rate he was when they were winning their Stanley Cups. And I mean, if you look at his stats by themselves, he hasn't had awful seasons, but compared to what he has had in the past, he's had 2 straight down years.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to hit the chat here quick. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's following the Claude Giroux model.
Yes. Just a couple of cool things in the chat. And again, James able to bring up, like, don't forget, like, Pittsburgh has Daniel Sprong. Yeah, look, Pittsburgh has some pieces in their system too. I don't want to, I don't want to say that the Penguins don't have the pieces to come in. I just think that the Penguins, they're just built differently. They're not as, they're not completely stuck. I mean, even in the expansion draft, Chicago, I think they can protect one player. Everyone else is protected by no moves. There's a couple things that was in the chat that I didn't want to miss off. 4 goals for Thornton saying, I wouldn't write Chicago off yet. No, absolutely, I agree. There's still pieces on that team. They can still be a threat, I think. I definitely wouldn't write them off. I just wonder how many times they can go to the well. I think they really need to get out from under that Hossa contract. I think that's, that would be, as much as I like Marian Hossa, I think that getting out from under that contract is going to be an important thing for them to try and do.
Therein lies another problem, because at the age he's at and with how many years you have left, you're probably going to have to either buy him out or retain salary in a trade, which are still going to have some long-term ramifications. I mean, yes, it's less than what he's making now, but it's still it's still going to cause problems. And I'm just laughing at what 4 goals for Thornton says. Detroit likes old and done players. They can take Hossa. They already had Hossa and it didn't work out.
Hossa. Yeah, didn't work out.
But Chicago's defense, I think, is still, I
don't like that Seabrook contract.
Yeah, the Seabrook contract is, it's awful for what he is. I think he's a good defenseman, no doubt, but he's not worth that contract.
He's not an elite defenseman anymore.
No, not at all. And Seabrook is still good. Duncan Keith, obviously, Hjalmarsson, like I said, Ville Polka earlier. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, they need to find a 6th defenseman, and they need to find somebody who can score goals. I mean, look at what they did, 2 years ago when they, again, went to the well on a rental, gave up Philip Deneau for Dale Weiss, and then I believe Philip Deneau had 20 goals with the Canadiens this year. So the Blackhawks like to move on from guys maybe a year too early, before they really know what they have with a guy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, that's just the cap now, right? Especially, right. And I think the thing that's scary for Chicago, especially now, is that there's a good chance. I mean, I know we've heard this the last couple of years, but I really feel like this is the year, because it's such a weak free agent class, that I really feel like that escalator is not happening this year, which means that cap is doing nothing.
Yeah, and it's, I'm glad that the Sharks won't be in any trouble, honestly, because they're, and I don't know how many times I've said this, but they're getting cap relief from the Wingles trade and the Burish buyout. They're getting relief there. Marlowe and Thornton, if they do come back, are coming back for less. You're getting relief. You're getting relief there. The Sharks are going to be fine, but other teams, I'm kind of in the middle, because on one hand, I'm like, wow, that really sucks. They're not going to be good anymore. But on the other hand, it's like, you did it to yourself.
Right.
Especially, like I said, with Chicago, not at least exploring the possibility of having their 2 top guys taking a discount so they can win more than 3 Stanley Cups. They did it to themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, look at you know what, but you have to, I think giving what Chicago look at, I think that there's not very many people who would, when you've won 3 Stanley Cups in that amount of time, I mean, you can't really, how angry can you be about it, right?
Right.
I think that's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. I mean, you had the championships. Obviously, you want to win every year, but there's teams that haven't won it all, and there's teams that haven't won in a long, long time.
And that's why I think the Pittsburgh model is one to follow, because they've been competitive and they've been allowed to mortgage some of their future for rentals, but they still have good pieces. If you asked me 2 years ago, if you came up to me 2 years ago and you said, okay, the Penguins are going to win the Stanley Cup and they're going to have Rust, Sheary, and Gensel on their team, I'm going to be like, who? They do a really good job of holding on to the future, but again, mortgaging the right pieces for a rental.
I think Nashville, I mean, I don't think enough gets said about Nashville, how they built their team, because this is a team that's been strongly built through the draft, but also they've made the big, they've made more big deals than I think anyone else lately. And they've been just hit after hit after hit. They had, so, they were able to part with a guy like Seth Jones, right, to get a Ryan Johansson. They were able to part ways with a Shea Weber to get a PK Subban. I mean, the work that David Poile's done in Nashville, I think that's what you really want from a franchise, because again, this team has drafted so well. This is easily one of the best decors in the league, maybe the best, to be completely honest. And I think that's and look at, and they make blockbuster trades. I mean, how could you not like that as a fan?
Yeah, and that's another thing that I like too about David Poile versus some other GMs is, David Poile recognized, a need that his team had, and instead of just sitting and waiting, he was proactive. Like, from my perspective, the biggest complaint that I had about Nashville was that they didn't have a true elite center, and it was very obvious that was their issue. And so David Poile was like, okay, hold on, like, I'm gonna go get one, and he went and got one. Yeah. Yep. That's what's about being a good GM, is realizing that you have a need and satisfying that need. I mean, again, I don't mean to crap on Doug Wilson, but it was like, the year the Sharks missed the playoffs, it was like, we're going to give our young players the chance. And then it's like, okay, let's look at our young players. Like, Tierney was okay, but like Nieto, time again, Barclay Goodrow, like, these aren't players you build a future around.
But you had John Scott to protect them at least.
That is true. John Scott, all of the yelling he did from the bench made guys not want to screw with them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Jesus. I think so coming up, obviously, we're going to try and be a little more regular again with the show. There's a lot of stuff. Look at the NHL, especially if they can drag this thing to 7. I mean, they're going to be laughing, because they've basically like spaced everything out perfectly so that they can just be like, hockey can just be the thing until like July 1st. Mm-hmm. They've done a really good job. So obviously, you have the Stanley Cup Finals, last 2 games, 2 potential games coming up, and then on the 18th of June, we have the protection release. Lists are going to be released. We're going to try and figure out what we're going to do as far as like show wise for that, because I don't know if we're going to come on. We're going to figure it out. There's potential we might come on just to talk about once the release lists, right?
Right.
And the at the same time, also Vegas can start talking to free agents and restricted free agents, which is dumb to me, but whatever. It's the NHL. They can't do anything logical. Obviously, the expansion draft is June 21st. The entry draft is the 23rd and 24th, and then the free agency will be on the 1st. A couple other things too is the NHL awards obviously will be, I believe, unveiling. They'll be unveiling the new jerseys, I guess, before the draft. Now I heard something about the 20th there being like an unveiling of the new Adidas sweaters. I thought how they were gonna do it was like, this team selects this player and you put on the new jersey. Like that's what makes the most sense. But sure, let's release, renderings of the jersey that don't do it justice because you haven't seen them in pads, Exactly. And then obviously free agency July 1st. So we'll probably be pretty active around that time. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. Obviously watch the at TTG Reborn or my Twitter feed, and we'll let you obviously know when we're planning on going on air. But for now, just kind of expect us to show up on Thursday nights.
Yeah, we'll be around talking about stuff, usual. And yeah. It's going to be fun, like the summer obviously sucks as a hockey fan, especially the time from like July 3rd to like August 20th. It's like boring. Nothing happens. It's like, every couple of days, Bob McKenzie's like, oh, I think the Dallas Stars are hiring a new head of like popcorn stands, or like you get little you get little you'll get little nuggets of information like that. But our goal is to keep the summer interesting. We've got a couple candidates to be this year's Jimmy VC. We'll be keeping an eye on.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll talk about that well into August. So, we'll stick around. Because we'll definitely be doing stuff. We'll be talking hockey. I think the one thing in the summer though is this is where really we need your help as viewers, watchers, fans, friends. If you have something you want us to talk about, I mean, this is the time to drop it on us, because we can generally make whole shows off of your guys' stuff. So if you have a topic, especially as we get deeper into the summer, as far as like, once we get past free agency, like the initial free agency, July, like your guys' stuff will be what keeps us going. So if you guys have any, anything you want us to talk about, be sure to do so. Aside from that, it was awesome coming on and doing a show and seeing all you guys again. The AHL prediction for the 17-18 season. I don't know if Stortini comes back. That's a good question. Maybe. I doubt it though. I mean, I think they're so heavily on the grit side that I don't see it. Like he was just like we'll take your stuff for Tommy Wingles.
Yeah, especially with the physical presence they have in Timo Meier.
I don't think Timo's ever playing another game for the Barracuda again, but that's just me.
You know what? That can be a topic of discussion for a future Thursday show.
That could be a future. Yes, absolutely. Will we be back after the Cup is won? It depends. I've got some stuff in the air right now, but as soon as I have like a more set schedule, I'm planning to be more around now. Like today was my last day of module hell. The next module is going to be a little bit easier. I have like Friday off. I like Timo the Flopper, Timo Torres. I love it. Oh man. So I'm hoping that we'll be, like I said, I'm hoping to be more around. I'm hoping to be way more active on Twitter again, like you guys are used to me being on Twitter. Oh gosh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. TTG reports Meyer not playing another CUDA game, gets traded. Yep, that's Doug Wilson for Ilya Kovalchuk.
Oh yeah. And Ilya Kovalchuk will score less goals than Mikhail Bodker.
Oh god, that would kill me. But yes, Timo Torres, I still get only in the AHL though. He doesn't do that shit in the NHL. That's the crazy thing.
See, and this is why we do shows, is because you provide us with laughter and memes.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I'm trying to just kind of get everything back settled again. Once I know what's going on, we'll let you know. Like I said, at the bare minimum, look for us here on Thursday nights. But I'm not saying that we can't do other shows for special events like maybe when the draft lists get released, maybe after the playoffs, maybe we can assemble the After Dark crew. I'm not saying that. No, I'm just saying I don't know right now.
And don't mark your calendars or anything, but I have it on good authority that those pucknologist guys might be poking their head out of the dirt in a little bit. So
there you go.
Something to think about.
And obviously you'd want to watch for that on our audio stream, since it's an audio only show. You could find that obviously SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and much, much more. If it's not on your podcast player, let me know and I will make sure it gets there. Also, haven't already, obviously, and then you can get notifications when we do awesome shows or going on air. You can go to our wonderful website, tealtownusa.com. I'm gonna write stuff for real this time, I think. Now that things have kind of died down and we're good. hopefully, you know, all that works out. Again, Jerk, any final thoughts before I click the go away button?
Final thought. I just want to say, you know, thank you to all 13 of you who tuned in. I know Thursday at 9:15 Pacific time is a weird time for some, but we appreciate you being here. It's nice, and I know Ian can attest to this, but it's nice to not feel like you're just yelling into an empty void.
It's
like
true.
it's nice to, you know, have some conversation, obviously, with Ian and I, but then you guys too. You know, you make it fun, and you definitely give us something to laugh about. Yeah, AO. I'm surprised Kevin didn't pop in too. Jerk.
He is kind of a jerk. Yeah, no, Kevin let us know that he probably wouldn't be able to make it, but Kevin will be back for future shows, I'm sure. And maybe we're, you know, and I think I want to start reaching out to some other people to come on too. So maybe stay tuned for some cool guests.
Yeah, maybe.
Ooh. All right, I'm out of here. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, Hockey Jerk is a restricted free agent, so we'll see if Puck Guy 14 wants to bring him back.
Oh man, yeah, I'm also a free agent. I've declared Group 6 free agency, so we'll see what happens. All right, peace out.